What's up, guys? So today on the podcast is going to be Eugene and I. No guests, just us. We're going to be talking about a idea that I read in a book recently, which I'll explain to you. I don't want to give it away because you'll hear me talk about it in just a second. But we're going to talk about an idea that I heard in a book that I've been kind of chewing on in my head. Get it? Chew.
I always get it, Chewy.
Get it, Eugene?
Always.
All right. Sometimes I know you kind of, it goes over your head.
I'm a bit slow at times, yes.
Not
yes.
slow, you just think too much about it. I've got a primitive humor about me. So I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. As always, thanks to our sponsors, Charlotte's Web. They are the CBD that we use, the CBD of my choice. I don't know what to say about it, right?
It's awesome.
It's awesome. Anyway, I use their products. I'm a big fan of them. I just gave a bottle of it to a friend of mine who had been using some other CBD before. He was just using a different brand. I gave him a bottle because we have a couple extra, and I gave him a bottle and just to sort of see how he felt with it. And he said that he noticed that he was able to take a little bit less than what he was taking before. And he said he felt kind of the same effects from it. So, that was a good thing, which I told him. I was like, 70% of the stuff that's out there right now, CBD, since it's not regulated, can be God knows what.
Yeah, or they don't know how much is in it. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
You don't know what's in there because they did a thing, and 70% of the samples that they did in one study showed that they either had more CBD than what was in there, less CBD, or they started having all kinds of other compounds in there that were not listed on the label. And so again, which could potentially make you pop for something, whatever. So anyway, it was interesting to see that. And so again, he said he's felt pretty good from it. And so if you guys want to check it out, my encouragement, because I know that we talk about it on the podcast a lot, and I just do it because anything that I do as far as the podcast, the videos, whatever, is always an extension of stuff I find interesting or useful. Like right now, we're trying some products that were sent to us from another company. We'll talk about it later once we get back to you, once we figure out how they work. But I only like promoting stuff that I actually use or that I like.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I don't like it, I don't use it, I don't want it. And so with the CBD from Charlotte's Web, I like it because, again, I know what's in it. I'm a big fan of actually knowing, I weigh my food. So I know exactly how many carbs and protein and fats I'm getting. And with my supplements, I weigh out my supplements, make sure know I'm getting exactly what I need. And it's the same thing too, CBD. I want to know exactly, what I'm getting in there, and it has that in there. It's been third-party tested. But again, I know there's a lot of claims and stuff like that, and some people swear by it, some people don't. I encourage everybody, because we're all so different, we're all so unique. Try it out for yourself and see what you think, because I was skeptical at first too. Once I got into it, I was like, I like this stuff. And if you want to, you can go to Charlotte's Web's website, and you go to charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Chewjitsu. Save 15% on the order. And if you're looking for something to help you sleep a little bit better, which again is that's the best recovery tool you have, is your ability to sleep. Mm-hmm. Check out their sleep gummies. They're really good. I mean, recently, and whether this is my diet that I've been on, whether this is CBD, whatever, who knows? But I believe CBD is helping. Like last night, I slept for a solid 7 hours, did not wake up, did not move. I woke up and I was like dead to the world. It was amazing, right? Like I mean, because on those days, man, like when you get good sleep, the rest of your day is better. Like I wake up and I'm ready to go. Mm-hmm. I don't get up, I gotta have coffee, groggy. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And so again, check it out at their website. Also, big thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll, epicrollbjj.com. Matt is actually, it's going to be fun. We're going to be doing some videos with him when he comes into town here in October. So be looking for that on YouTube. But Matt makes a lot of cool jiu-jitsu gear, shirts, gis, rash guards, the whole thing. I'm partial to his shirts. I like him a lot. And I like his... I like the designs. He does the designs himself, and I like the fact that they're like low key and chill, but at the same time they're fun, aesthetically pleasing, but they're not so in your face. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds kind of simple. I'm just more of a simplistic guy.
Yeah,
I'm a minimalist, and I don't want something that I'm wearing scream like It's kind of like the jiu-jitsu shirt. So every now and then, I'll meet people or I'll see people and they know me because of the jiu-jitsu shirt, and we're in on something. Like, here's a great example. I was in like a weightlifting gym the other day, lifting, And I get in there, and this guy comes up to me. It was actually Sunday. Comes up to me. He's like, bro, he's like, I thought it was you over there, which is funny because I just got done doing a kind of a funny looking exercise. I was doing glute pull-throughs, so I was using the cable machine, and basically I'm bending over and like working my glutes a bit. So I just got done doing this weird exercise, but he comes up and asks me, he's like, I thought it was you, then I saw the shirt, and because we're wearing a jiu-jitsu shirt, and we start talking, and he takes a picture, he's like taking a selfie with me.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm looking around, and there's a couple people in the gym around us, and they're looking at like, who is this guy? You know, it's like, so we're in on something.
Like a little celebrity.
Yeah,
right?
like, well, yeah, I'm like, I told you, like an F-list celebrity, right?
Yes.
So we're in on this thing that nobody else is.
Right.
And so I kind of like that when you have subtle stuff that, you know, people maybe don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then you know, that kind of thing. And there's also some humor to it with the urban legend rash guard, which was fun. I always get compliments on that.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
I love them.
So anyway, if you want to check out his stuff, go to epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is jiu-jitsu. Save 15% on the order. And then, guys, if you want to support the podcast, you can check out the Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast.
That's correct.
Kept you in suspense. Along with the content, the videos that we post, the podcast extras where we talk to people and all that stuff, along with all the content you probably know about, we also, I'm extending this to you guys that join the Patreon. You will be able to take part in I do a live meetup on what is that program called? Zoom. Yes, Zoom.
Well, that thing.
What is that program called? The Zoom. That's the one where we look like the Brady Bunch. But Zoom. So the Zoom call that we do it every other Sunday around 11:30 Eastern time, and so I'm going to extend that to the Patreon members. So if you'd like to take advantage of the seminar videos, the technique videos, the warm-up videos that Yuji's done, the content that we have on there on the Patreon, as well as the bi-monthly hangouts, then head on over to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast, and for less than $0.25 a day, you can join in with us. So
that's correct.
So, my friends, with all of that said, let's jump into the podcast and let's talk about good times, hard times, and bad times. What's up, guys? So the other day I was reading a Steve Jobs biography. I think it was by Walter Isaacson. I think that's I can't remember the guy's name. Isaacson is one of them. It's a great book. I really enjoyed it. I really didn't know all that much about Steve Jobs. Obviously, I knew he was the Apple guy, and I knew bits and pieces. But getting in there was really interesting to see his life laid out. Again, I'm a big fan of biographies and memoirs and things like that, so you can sort of see the way that people lived and sort of understand different pieces. And I think it's really instructive. You know, for me as a business owner, there's a lot of useful stuff in there. But one of the things that I saw in there was this thing where Steve Jobs wrote a note when he was towards the end of his life and he was having a wedding anniversary. He wrote this note to his wife, and he said that, you know, we've had some good times and we've had some hard times, but we've never had bad times. And that's like just stood out to me, and it just sort of struck me really strongly because I think about that. There's so much in like our existence, right, where we have good times and what we would think are bad times, but then a lot of times once things are past to a certain point, those bad times, they end up becoming kind of good times in a way. They were hard to deal with, but they ended up making you do something to become something better, stronger, or what have you, right? You know, an example is competitions. A lot of times I'll hear people, you know, if they lose a competition, they'll be so upset and distraught about it. You know, I went to California and I spent $1,500 or $2,000 to get out there for the hotel, this whole thing, and then I lost my first round. It was terrible. But I know for me, for instance, back in 2015, I spent a little over $1,500 going out to California and competing at the Pans, and I remember I lost to a guy, and it was a frustrating loss because the guy, he kept sort of skirting the edge. So I took him down like 2 or 3 times, but each time I took him down, his feet were on the edge. So every time I took him down, literally we went out of bounds and there were no points. And then every time we'd restart the match, he would back up. I remember one point I got so frustrated, I looked at the ref and I threw my hands up. And I said, what do you want me to do? Like, he's running away from me. They give him a stalling call, which means absolutely nothing. And then I remember at one point we were down and I was hoping like he would go to, because I did a desperation move, he passed and got to to side control. So I was hoping, because in side control he was still kind of distant, kind of away from me. So what I was like, well, maybe I can get him into mount, because if he gets into mount, I got a good X guard, like mount escape to X guard sweep that I could just get a hold of him so he couldn't get away from me. So I laid there flat. I'm dead serious. I laid down, my arms down at my side, and just limped. I was just like, let's do something. And he did not move. He just sat there. And I was like, this sucks, And again, he played a good game. He played a good strategy against me and beat me by some points, right? I was upset about that one. I was like, man, $1,500 down the tubes for one match, and I got just beaten by strategy, whatever. It sucks. I would rather get someone who just schools me and really just beat the brakes off me than like be beaten like that, because it just, I don't know, it's frustrating. But then fast forward a little over a year later, I'm competing at a competition for money for $1,000. And there was a point where the competitor that I was going against was doing the same thing. He was skirting the edge. So what did I do? I was like, I remember this. I remember last time I was chasing this guy down on the edge of the mat, and every time we would go out of bounds, I would lose my takedown. I stopped, went back to the center, and I was like, sort of motioned him forward, like, come on here, walk towards me. And I ended up getting some takedowns in that match, and I ended up winning the money. That little thing has happened multiple times. Even last year, I was at a tournament in Chicago, and I remember being so cognizant of where I was on the mat. I remember I was with this big guy, and we were going towards the edge, and I quickly got around him and pushed him back into the ring, and then took him down, because I was aware, because I remember every single time I friggin' would get that takedown, I lost, and it was a painful loss. So it was a hard pill to swallow that I played a bad game plan, but it was a good thing long term, because I dealt with the problem, made sure that it didn't happen again, and in turn it made me better and helped me out in a lot of competitions. And I even think about, like, one of the most, what I would consider kind of bad in a way, was when I was 11 years old, I got jumped. A lot of you that listen probably know the story, but I'll give you the quick little gist of it, in case this is one of the first things you've ever heard from the old Schuster here. In 7th grade, 11 years old, I got jumped by these three, there was a 16, 18-year-olds, a mixture of them, right? Like late teenagers. And one of them punched me in the nose, broke my nose, and then I got hit with a bat. And that experience really, it traumatized me in a lot of ways, where, man, like, even to this day, like when I go into whenever I'm walking, whenever I'm out, I naturally scan. Like if I go into a grocery store, I'll scan, and I'll notice everyone before they, like for instance, if you were in a grocery store, I would notice you before you notice me. Like, it happens all the time. I'll be out in places, and then I'll notice someone, and I'll notice, like, oh shit, that's that guy from the gym or something, and I'll come up to him and say, hey, what's up, man? Oh, I didn't see you. Or in some cases, if I don't want to talk to him, that's the dude. Like, then I'll just kind of, I know where to go. I need to, like, one time I went in and I went into Trader Joe's, and I saw my ex-girlfriend's mother. And she didn't see me, so I was like, oh, keep that down. Like, let's get out of here, 'cause I didn't want to talk to her. But anyway, so, it was a bad time. It was a bad thing, because I got beaten up. All my physical confidence was gone, and I felt terrified. I remember physical confrontations, which used to be kind of normal. I remember being a kid, we'd get into scraps sometimes, and it was just very normal. We're getting a little fight, no big scuffle, no big deal, But then I went from that to physical confrontation scared me. I remember when people would bully me, instead of being able to stand up for myself and even take a little bit of a lick, I couldn't do it anymore. It was terrible. And I remember it naturally sort of drove me to wrestling. And I remember getting into wrestling and losing weight, getting in shape. I remember even being able to, getting bullied and double legging people into, old radiators, and being like, that's it. Because, in a high school fight, most of the time, double leg onto some hard surface kind of ends the fight. They don't want to fight anymore. And so it made me feel this oh my God, I'm becoming stronger, and it pushed me. And I think one of the reasons why I'm here today and who I am today is because of that event. Because, the confidence, the physical confidence I had was sucked out of me. And then I had to find a way to get it back. Yeah. And then I found a way to get it back. And I kept going and doing it. And then even that experience then made me want to share it with other people. Because I'm like, wow, this thing gave me something, this grappling thing, these martial arts things, they gave me something powerful and allowed me to, like, take back my own sort of confidence and power that was within me, I would love to share this with more people so that they can gain the confidence or get something from it as well. And so what seemed like a really bad event turned out to be kind of it was a hard thing to deal with for sure, but it turned out to be beneficial in the long term. And it's kind of like that a lot of times. The story doesn't make sense until the end. At the end of the story, boom, it all kind of comes together.
It all ties together.
It all ties together. Like watch, maybe if you don't read, like if you're watching a Netflix special or some like series, in that last episode of the season, everything gets tied in, or at the last episode of the whole show, all the ends get tied in, right? And it all makes sense at the end. And so I think that a lot of times like that. Now, I'm not saying that bad things don't happen, because there are tons of bad stuff that do happen, when someone's like murdered or, you have things like wars and things like that. Those are not,
Sure.
That's bad stuff. But I think that if we really look at ourselves and sort of objectively look at things and take a certain perspective to them, I think when we look at our lives, a lot of times, most of the time, our lives are, for the most part, especially if you're living in you live in the United States for the most part. Most people in the United States, in the Western world that's fairly affluent, like most of our lives, we have some hard times, but I really think like very little of it's bad. Bad. Even someone might say, but Chewy, I lost a family member and they died. And I understand that too, but death's a part of life, right? And there's no way to get around it. We all have to go. And it's terrible when they do. It's a hard thing to deal with, but is that bad, right? If someone like, for instance, like my mother died of cancer, it's terrible. I don't consider it a bad thing. It just is what it is. Like, it just sucks. It's a part of life. Like, it's not like, it's not something, like whether she died, 10 years ago or she died yesterday or something. I mean, we all got to go. You don't really get a choice in that one. That's kind of a thing in that sense, as far as like some natural cause eventually overtakes you.
Right.
And again, I'm just talking this idea with you out because some of you guys may disagree with me, which is completely okay. But I just think that for the most part, most of our existence usually is hard at times. But if you take on a perspective of sort of, figuring your way through it or taking notes from what you've been through, I think that it can be hard, but may not be bad in the long term.
Yeah. So like, as far as analyzing a situation, like, I mean, for example, you getting jumped, you're in this horrible situation. I mean, it's just like your world's kind of falling apart almost. I mean, being a young kid and having everything kind of, your whole ability to just feel like you can fit in places and go places without fear. Being older now, you can look back on that situation, but is there like a mindset now that you, like, if something happens, even in this day and age, being aware of, being more aware of situations that you kind of, how do you take a step back and kind of observe and see if you can learn something from maybe a bad situation and turn it into a hard one, I guess?
Yeah, well, again, when I was a kid, I didn't understand this at all. Like, right? It was terrible, and eventually I got over it. I think that one of the things that this is that classic sort of, I mean, this is classic stoicism, right? Focus on what you have control of. So like, for instance, if I look at, like look back at it, knowing what I know now, let's say if I was that 11-year-old kid again, I'd say, well, you know what? I don't have control of the kids, what they did to me. What I can do, though, is I can make sure that I have the tools necessary to defend myself should something like this ever happen again, right? And then I would know how to deal with that sort of situation and improve myself. Like I did. I did it. I just didn't know sort of the track that I was on, and it took me a lot longer than what it maybe should have. Even like this year, we had COVID. We had the lockdown and the quarantine, and obviously it's not completely over, but there was a point where we were having harsh lockdowns where we couldn't even open our business.
Right.
And you want to talk about being worried. Like, is the business that I've put together with my partner over the last 10 years, is it going to go down the tubes? I remember getting up, I remember being at the gym one night and looking up at the pictures of all the black belts and getting teary-eyed because I'm like, I wonder if this is ever going to be back. Because I mean, dude, this is what I live for. I live for having people in there, and I like having this community of people coming in, and I feel like it's even more necessary now than ever because it's a place where people can come together and not be so divided by all the stuff that they're told that they're conditioned to be divided from.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it was nerve-wracking a little bit, but I remember there was a shift. It was about probably a couple weeks in where I was like, okay, snap out of it. because I was nervous. I was waking up, just
Yeah.
pit in my stomach and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, shake out of this stuff. All right, what can we do? I have no control over a virus. I have no control over, all that kind of stuff. But what I do have control is this. And I started to look at the basically list of things that I could do right now that could positively affect the business to make sure that things stayed alive and all this other stuff. Like one of the things we started doing, we started giving away of our equipment. All right, guys, we're going to give you equipment. If you want to stay true, loyal to the gym, we're going to try to do what we can for you guys. So we had Frank was out like getting up the equipment. We were giving away mats and stuff like that and just doing what we could.
Right.
And then there were some different things that I did on the back end of the business to improve things for when we came back,
right?
Which since we've been back have really helped. And so doing all these different things, like, look, I can't control everything, but I can control these things, and just focusing on that stuff, and take whatever power you have in the situation, take that and run with it, because again, we don't have a ton of control over really anything all the time. When you really think about what you have control over, it's not as much as you would like, of course. So you have to focus on what you do have control of, at least for me. And this is what's been useful to me, right? Like when I get in really bad situations now, I got to shake it off.
Yeah.
And say, all right, what can I do? What can I do here? Like, what do I actually have control of? And let's focus on that, because if I get hung up on all this other stuff that I have no control over, what am I going to do?
How do you but see, this is a difficult situation for people. I think you're kind of more aware than some people. You've done a lot of self-work where you've brought yourself to a point where you're more aware, like that you're in this phase or the stage where you kind of don't have a lot of control. Like I said, it wakes you up, but then you snap out of it, right? Like, what's helped you get to a point where you snap out of the situation? I think for me personally, it's been like, I haven't been very consistent with meditation, but being more present, being more aware, that's something that that's really helped me kind of figure out, like, why am I irritated? What's causing the irritation? What's causing this, like, bad feeling in the pit of my stomach, and how do I, figure it out? Like, what do you think has helped you reach that point of like, all right, let's figure out where we're at, let's assess the situation, and then let's try to see if we can kind of move into a different direction?
I mean, meditation's been useful because of the fact that you get in tune with your body, but it's that whole self-awareness thing, right? Like, you have this in jiu-jitsu as well. You have this in weightlifting, right? Like, if you're doing jiu-jitsu, you have an awareness of sometimes the emotions coming up. Like, I mean, if anybody's ever been rolling, maybe I'm weird, but I know that for me, there's been times where literally I've been rolling with someone, and I got like the two little guys. It's like a cartoon from the from the old Looney Tunes cartoons. I've got like two little guys sitting on my shoulder, and one of, like, it's during like a really intense struggle, like we're battling for a guard pass, right? And one little guy's going, "Hey, Chewy, give up the guard pass. Your arms are hurt. Just let them go, and then you can just lay there and get in side control." And the other one's going, "Don't give up. Keep going. Keep fighting." Right? And you got these two guys going in your head.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, okay. And then it's becoming aware that sometimes, like, I remember early on, I remember being a white belt and noticing that I was letting people pass my guard because I was giving up. And I was like, I hate this. Because I leave and I'm like, I bitched out today, right? And I hate feeling like that. So I was like, wait a second. So next time I come in, I'm gonna be ready for him, right? I'm gonna have like my mental, like the centuries of my brain, right? Like centuries as an SENTRIES, right? Like warriors sitting there ready, be like, as soon as that bitch side of myself comes out, we're gonna stab him down. Get away from here. So so as soon as I feel that emotion coming, I'm ready for it. Hey, Chewy, give up just give up the position. Nope, not today, right?
Yeah. It's almost like your cat. Like I guess was it David Goggins talks about callousing your mind. You're like callousing your mind against like this giving up. Like you're putting yourself in a situation where you want to give up, right? So that's why jiu-jitsu, I think, for me is so beneficial, and for other people too. It puts me in hard situations over and over, and it makes me overcome over and over, and I get used to doing that. So you get used to different situations that are hard in your life, not just jiu-jitsu side, but hard in your life, and you're able to, like, okay, I'm going to use the same mindset that I have in jiu-jitsu during training to these other events in my life.
Well, right, and that's the thing. Jiu-jitsu, like, stress is stress for your body. Your body doesn't have a good mechanism to, oh, this is good stress, this is bad stress. It just says there's stress, and so you're placed in stressful situations, right? And so when you're placed in those stressful situations, that's when you have to. That's really when you figure out who you are anyway, right? How do you act when things get hard? It's easy when things are good, right?
Yeah.
When things are going smooth for you, very easy. But when things are tough, how do you act? That tells me a lot about a person, right? Do you give up and fold every time things get tough? Well, that tells me about who you are. Doesn't mean you can't change it, but it tells me about who you are now, right? And so when things get stressful, that's a good indicator, again, where you start to see things come up. And so, it's about being like that. And then the meditation part of it, right? So meditation is simply just being there with your body. And that can be very simple. Again, I've used this talk before. I've talked about this before. But one of the more sort of powerful moments I had with meditation was when I was standing. I was 15 minutes. It was 15 minutes of movement and activity going on, right? Mostly dancing. And then it was 10 minutes of just standing still.
You're in one spot, just standing there.
Stand still, one spot. Do not move.
Eyes open or closed?
Closed. You're just standing still. Do not move. Now that sounds easy. Just stand in a spot for 10 minutes.
Nope.
Don't move. Right? It's incredibly difficult. And then you start to get all these things coming up in your head like, oh my God, we got to move, whatever. Did I set the timer right? Oh God, God, I'm itching right now. I remember the itch. The itch is the one I talk about all the time.
Every time I'm meditating, I fucking have an itch. Every single time, and I think of you.
Do you scratch it? Do you scratch
Sometimes.
it? Don't scratch it.
Sometimes.
Don't scratch it.
Like, but what if it's like a bug crawling on me?
It's not though. How many times has it been a bug?
Maybe once or twice. It was a tick one. I had a tick one time. That was bad. I was like, something's crawling on me. I wasn't meditating at the time.
We weren't meditating.
Yeah.
So if you're meditating, you're probably not going to be a tick. But the whole point about that is that itch to scratch. And the reason why I think it's such a decent metaphor is, when those emotions come up, right? So like for instance, when the COVID stuff came up and the lockdowns happened and I was nervous, I was like, well, let's see what's going on here right now. I could sit here and get sucked into the toxic news and just go through it all day long, making myself sick, because, at the time, nobody knew what was going on. It was scary. It was unknown. I could make myself sick with that because, and the media loves it. They eat it up. They got a crisis on their hands. So let's keep it going. Let's fan those flames, right? Or I could say, you know what? Like anything else, this is going to pass. And I could set myself up for a better situation when it passes. So I could devote myself to studying and working on the skills that I've developed. I could use it as time to spend with Jess because, hey, look, I don't get to spend as much time with her as I normally do because of work. So, hey, this is some extra time. I did I did some consulting work for other gym owners that were kind of in some spots with them. And basically just like, I'm going to do this for fun and did that a little bit. So I started doing all these other things that were productive that I could control, that I wanted to do, and I started going there. And so I chose not to scratch the itch of let's get myself freaked out by reading the shitty news.
Yeah.
Right? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just like, I'll find the news when I want it, but otherwise I'm going to get away from all the news. And so that's what I mean by scratching the itch. And it's just like the same thing. When you step on the mat and you're like frustrated or something like that, you can choose to go with your frustration. Or you can start to become aware of it and say, what the hell am I frustrated about? I'm training. Like, for instance, like if you get frustrated when you're training, what the hell are you frustrated about? You're training. You're healthy enough to train. You are alive. You are living in a day and age where life is comfortable enough for you to go train jiu-jitsu because you don't have to like work like in a friggin' like blistering hot, overworked, industrialized factory of like 1895 or something, right, where like literally you're being worked for 16, 17, 18 hours a day and you're getting paid peanuts. You get what I'm saying. Things are comfortable enough for you to do this and you're healthy, you're alive, you have a working body. That's something to be thankful because right now people are like in a cancer ward, going through some of the toughest stuff of their life and they may not make it. Right. Yeah. And so you can always put that perspective. So you can choose to scratch the itch or you can be like, I got it all right.
No, that makes sense. Like putting everything.
It's about perspective.
Exactly, and that's what I was getting at, and that's what I was thinking too as you're talking. I was like, how do I like in the grand scheme of things? If you have something like say a bad tournament or a bad outcome of the tournament, what does this impact? Like look at I sometimes for myself when I have like say a bad day on the mats, I'm like, oh, what are people going to think of me? I think I suck at jiu-jitsu. I think I'm this, I'm that. And then I'm like, what was going on? Like, and also look at your body of work. Like you've been on the mats for so many years. Like you're going to have days where you're just not there.
Yep.
You get caught, whatever it is. And so I think perspective is so valuable to even find, but it's hard to sometimes find that, especially even at a tournament. Like if you're nervous for a tournament, maybe it's your first black belt tournament or whatever, or your first tournament altogether. Like look at it in the grand scheme of things. Like, is this outcome of the tournament going to really change the dynamic of the world or what? Unless you don't want to get hurt. Obviously, injury is kind of probably the main concern in a tournament like that. But for me, I was just like, am I as prepared as I can be for this tournament? I like things I can control. Do I have a game plan? Am I prepared? Like, because you can't worry about what your opponent can do, and just like you can't worry about what's going on in the world, like with COVID and stuff. You just can't. You have to figure out. So during that time, during COVID time, I was like, well, I've got time to work on making a product or like educating or getting better at a craft.
Well, here's another example. So last night, we had the debacle of the Furtz's debates between the great Orange Egomaniac and the guy with dementia with Alzheimer's or whatever is going on with him.
Did you hear what this one like media dude, he called it like some kind of dumpster fire or something?
Okay. No, here's what
that was a great analogy.
Now look, here's what I say about that. I saw, because I watched 10 minutes of it, saw where it was going. It's like, okay, here's where we go. And I mean, like, again, maybe you can think whatever you want to about it. We used to have politicians that had pretty speeches, and then they never delivered. Now we have guys that don't have pretty speeches and they're uncouth and they still don't deliver. So what are we gonna do? But the thing is it's not. Like people were talking about it online. I kind of got up this morning. I saw some stuff on like social media, and people were saying how terrible these things were, so bad, and Biden's an idiot or Trump's a this, that, whatever. Just going crazy. And I thought about it for a second. I'm like, what did you expect? Like, because like looking at some of these people that were posting this, I'm like, you speak to people on your social media feed the exact way that they speak to each other. So why would you be surprised that the men and women in politics that are supposed to be representative of you are acting in the exact same way that you choose to represent yourself? Why is that to surprise you? Right? Because someone has, like, if someone has a different idea, instead of saying, hey, why do you think that? Let me hear some of the, you're an idiot, you're a friggin' white supremacist Trump supporter, or you're a friggin', snowflake libtard, whatever. A million things, right? Yeah. Instead of saying, hey, what's going on with you? Why do you think that? Let's talk about it. Let's exchange civil discourse.
Yeah.
Right? You speak the same way.
Speaking of the debate specific, I was really surprised like they were calling each other names. Like, why? It was called, I don't know, because I wouldn't expect that from someone in power.
You don't expect it, but what do you think? But again, the people.
I don't know. It was
Emerson has this essay called "Representative Men," and he's talking about the men that represent us in society. They're simply just an extension of us.
Yeah.
So why would you be surprised that the people that are again the people that are supposed to be representative of the needs or whatever that we want, which they're not, right? But representative of us, act as exact same way as a lot of the public do when they're representing themselves. I mean, look on social media. It's all people do is just blah, blah, blah. But here's why I'm getting with this. You could choose to be like, oh my God, these stupid politicians, blah, 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 blah. Or you could say, you know what? I can't change them. But you know what I could do? I could start being more open to the ideas of when someone has a different idea than me. You know what? Instead of just yelling at that person and trying to slam dunk or have that mic drop moment like, oh, I got you. Maybe say, why do you think that? Let me ask you a question. Let me try to come to your perspective. Why do you think that? Let's exchange ideas. I may not agree with you, but we can have civil discourse. You may have a good idea that maybe I agree with, and I might have one that you agree with, and we can meet somewhere in the middle, right? Maybe that would be a better place to come from. So instead of bitching about a politician and scratching that itch, you could say, you know what? I want to make the world a better place. I have a choice. We all have a choice of you can put out positive or negative energy, your choice. Yeah. You know what? Instead of scratching that itch of being negative and like, I can say, you know what? Everyone I come in contact with, I'm going to try to push out some positive energy and be a light for that, right? And that's what I'll do. And that goes back to your perspective. You can look at that. And so that's where I get at with that stuff, because it's like you can choose to scratch the itch and go in the direction you want to. But people just get led astray, so they're like all up in arms about the debates. I'm like, okay, well, what could you do? How could you change things? And people say, well, you can't change. I can't change these politicians that absolutely suck. But you know what? People that come into my gym, or people that I meet when I'm out day to day, I can treat them with the utmost respect. I can have fun with them, and if they're differing, because like for instance in the gym, I know I'm surrounded by people that do not think the same things that I do, and I don't think the same thing. Who gives a right? It's cool.
Yeah.
And I've even talked to someone. I'm like, well, why do you think that? Tell me why you think that. I'm not here to tell you you're wrong or right. I just want to know, because that's how we exchange ideas.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it's something that I think is very interesting. So, with that, I think that, again, you can choose to scratch the itch that you wish to, but you have to be aware of what's going on and aware, like, when are you being pulled, right, by the machinery of society and the machinery of the news and the media and everything else, or your own frustrations and own failings, whatever it might be, your own emotions. And when are you making a conscious choice?
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have like maybe like an alarm bell that goes off if that ever happens? Like if you're in a situation and you're like getting pulled in, and sometimes it's something that happens maybe when people aren't aware, right? You're not aware. Like all of a sudden I'm feeding into this thing that is nothing positive about it. But so just in any situation, do you have like an alarm bell like, oh man, I'm going down this rabbit hole of negative thought or of a bad situation, and maybe it's just a hard situation?
Well, my default mode is not anger. It's not frustration. It's not negative. So, for instance, whenever I start to feel that energy coming up, that negative energy, that frustration, that whatever, I'm kind of I've gotten so used to it. I question myself, why am I feel this way?
Yeah.
And I'll think about it. Like a lot of times in those moments, I get really quiet because I don't want to lash out at people. And I'll think, well, why do I think this way? And then you start to think about it and ask yourself a question. That's like one of Jordan Peterson's things. He talks about, like, ask yourself the question. Talk to yourself. Write in a journal page. Talk to yourself.
Yeah.
Figure out where you're coming from. Instead of just letting it go, and all of a sudden you're lashing at all the people around you. Just like, why do I feel this way? And sometimes, honestly, I'll say sometimes there's not a good reason. Some days I'm just in a foul mood.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen often, but every now and then it's just I'm in a foul mood. Like I'll come home and I'll talk to Jess. I'll give her a kiss, tell her I love her, and I'll say, you know what? I'm just gonna go to sleep tonight because I'm in a foul mood, and I don't say anything mean to you because I'm not mad at you. I'm just pissed. I don't know why, so I'm gonna go to sleep. Right? Just woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
It's happened to me before, and like I'm starting to acknowledge it. My wife sometimes acknowledges it, and she's like, "You need to go." Like it's probably either I didn't get to work out or didn't get enough movement in, or something just kind of like got me. And she's like, "Go do what you need to do because I know
you're on my nerves right now."
It's like a sense. So like I think having an awareness of that so crucial. Because I mean, most situations I feel like you can probably learn something from, right? I mean, there's something. God, I hate to say something good, and I don't know if that's always the case, but there's got to be something that you can...
Something at least useful.
Something useful.
We don't have to put a value judgment of good or bad on it. Right? We can say something useful.
Yeah.
Right? And again, this is an idea more I'm talking out with you guys because it's just something I was thinking about when I told you. I was like, man, just like when I think of bad things.
Sure.
A lot of the things that I thought were bad ended up being kind of useful later on.
Well, I think it helps.
There's unfortunate stuff that happens for sure. But sometimes, but to say bad, like like someone. A lot of times people say, "Is there something you regret or wish you would have never had happen?" And I think about that. I wish I would have never been jumped. I wish I would have never done this, that, whatever. But maybe I wouldn't be here right now, and I wouldn't be as happy as I am.
Yeah, for me, like I guess if we say a bad experience or whatever. Say on the mats, like it always gives me, always learn more from a bad experience than I do from a good one.
Because it stings.
I always do. Yeah, because a good one, you're like, okay, I'm just doing what I need to be doing, keep going. But whenever I've had like, a quick loss in a tournament or a bad training session, like, you even told me, we talked about it before the podcast, I get in my head about it a little bit, but I'm trying to not let it consume, because I let it consume me a lot of times. That's all I think about, and I replay it.
Oh, yeah.
So what I'm trying to think about is like, well, why did this happen? What can I change?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out what I can modify, how I can modify my perspective. And the next time I have something tangible to work on, like, oh, I got to do this one thing. Let's see if I can do this one thing. I have a goal. Now I have a goal. The one goal is, not necessarily to be in the same situation again, which I don't think is the best way to make a goal. Like out of fear almost. I want to do something. I want to accomplish something.
Sure.
So I use it that way. And I've always learned, if I took an exam and I got a question wrong, and I looked at that question and I researched, I knew if I ever got anything similar to that, like in physical therapy school, I was like, I know why this is the case. Like, and you shall never forget it for the most part. So,
well, learning generally, like for a long period of time it's a very painful thing typically. I mean, think about the way that you learn a lot of things. How did you learn the stove was hot? You touched the damn thing.
Failure.
How did you learn how to like really make sure you sunk a submission in, because you did it last time and you didn't sink it in. The dude passed your guard and smashed you. Painful. This is I was listening to a speaker talk, and he said this is why places of learning back in the day used to be in like temples and things like that, because it was a protected space to learn in, because it's a painful experience to learn. Whether there's anything true or not, I think the symbolism is useful. Because again, learning is typically a painful experience. Like you can book learn, right, and have intellectual like understanding, but when you get down into knowing something,
yes,
a lot of times that happens like when you crash and burn a little bit and you figure things out. That's when you really start to like, man, I know this, because you've done it so many times, you've had those failures to really sharpen that information that you have, and you get a certain knowing that to me is not. It's not knowing in the head, but just knowing sort of on a deep level, knowing in your bones, right? Like for instance, jiu-jitsu. I know jiu-jitsu in my bones. Like it's not something where I'm intellectually thinking about it all the time. Like when I roll, I'm hardly thinking. It's so wired into my nervous system. I'm moving. I can literally have a conversation with someone and roll with someone at a fairly good pace, and like no problem.
Yeah.
Right. I know it at a deep level. But I think that's the powerful thing of like really. I think that, for all of us, I think that as we're getting older, we want to try to, at least this is me. This is the way I look at it. And I'm just sharing perspectives with you guys. As I get older, I want to make sure that I move into an elder position, right? Because I am already, right? There's plenty of younger guys that come into the gym, and for years I've been like a sort of a mentor to them at times, right? There's plenty of people that I've done that with, right? But there was an interesting thing where the guy said, a speaker said, everyone gets older, but not everybody. Everyone grows older, but not everybody grows elder. Meaning, a lot of people don't look back their garbage and make some gold out of it, right? Because the gold of our experiences typically comes from the worst periods of time, right? You think about typically the stuff that you messed up is how you figured out how to get something good, right? Like, so a lot of times it's those bad things that lead to something good and useful. And so you mine the gold through the garbage experiences that you've had. I mean, hell, if you guys have watched many of my videos, you've probably listened to me tell you about experiences where I crashed and burned and failed and had stuff happen that wasn't pleasant. And it's those things that led me to do something decent, and it's those things that even lead me to connect with you guys. So again, that's a powerful place to move from. And so I think as we go through life, I mean, we got to expect hard times are going to come. Stuff's going to happen. Right? And your perspective is, well, I can just take a swing and try to make something happen, or, you can go the other direction. But I think that moving in a direction where you're constantly trying to overcome the circumstances as best you can, if it's possible, is just a better place to move from.
Well, maybe even like from a perspective of being prepared, like, oh, I'm going to learn from this bad thing and I'll be prepared if something comes along that's similar, or, like the bad experiences that we've had, whatever, they are. We have learned from those, and it's almost like prepared us for dealing with future experiences that might not be going our way. And I think
100%.
I think that's powerful, because it's almost like you already have a little bit of you've been in that fire a little bit, and you know what it's like, and you also know like, hey, I don't want to stay here any longer. This is not fun. How do I get out of it more quickly? So maybe you're more efficient. You don't lull yourself into like a bad situation, stay there for longer than you have to. You take from it, like you said, you take out of the garbage what you need, the useful stuff, and then you make gold out of it, I guess.
Yeah. And think about even so for instance, if you help teach a class, like you're trying to help people like avoid some of the mistakes you made,
for sure,
so they can make new mistakes but it speeds up the process, right? You're trying to distill down some knowledge to them,
Yeah.
And so I think that's the beauty in having those negative experiences, because they have a use to you.
Yeah, and you can share that with other people, and hopefully they will, like you said, they'll maybe not make those same mistakes, or
from a teaching standpoint,
or have a different experience when those mistakes come, like have a different perspective on it. They'll already know, like, hey, you're gonna feel this way. This is normal. Like I think some of your videos, that you share about some failures or some tough times that you've had, I think those resonate with people, because like when I started training, I mentioned this before on the podcast. When I started training, nobody really talked about that stuff. It's like you had some buddies maybe that were going along. You may even be experiencing the same things, like doubt and God, this is really tough, or are you having a hard time catching on? Sometimes you don't even mention that to people because you don't want them to think that you're having these doubts. But I think when you share those videos and those experiences, people resonate and they can understand that, like, hey, this is normal. This is part of the process. This is part of just the way that it goes. This is part of the learning curve almost.
That's right.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, guys. So thanks for joining us today. Real quick, guys, just a little message to you. If you guys would like to help to support the podcast, or if you'd like to listen to the podcast in a different place, I've gotten a lot of people that are like me and have a YouTube Red membership, and they're like, man, I would love to listen to your podcast on YouTube. Or if you'd like to watch it in video, a lot of times you'll see me with my hair really messed up because it's usually post-training. Head on over to YouTube and search the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, and you'll find that we got a new YouTube channel for the podcast, so you can jump in there and if you want to support it, subscribe and all that stuff. So this way we can kind of get that thing going, and we'll share the podcast there as well as all the other places that our podcast is shared. And we'll also do our live streams on that page too. So if you ever want to jump in on one of our YouTube live streams, you'll want to save that one there and, subscribe it so this way you can get it. And then also, if you want, I have changed a few things. I'll let you know what this is. If you would like to get some free resources, so I give away a couple of free ebooks and some free videos. So it's a drilling ebook as well as a jiu-jitsu game plan ebook that you could use if you're getting ready for a competition or what have you. Go to jujitsutraining.com/pod, P-O-D. I have a website up there. You can download both of them from that. So it's jujitsutraining.com/pod, and you can download the free resources and jump into it. And you'll also get subscribed to my my almost daily emails that I send out. And you guys know the drill. Charlotte's Web. Go to charlottesweb.com .com and use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu.
They actually can go to a slash.
Oh, can they go to a slash?
Yeah, we have a landing page on the Charlotte's Web website.
How come we don't ever use that?
I don't know. We should. It's charlottesweb.com/Jiu-Jitsu.
All right, I'm gonna use
and it's got a little video of us talking about Charlotte's Web and also just some of the things that we like. And so you can check that out.
I'm going to try it right now. Hold on a second.
Go for it, Chew.
charlottesweb.com/Jiu-Jitsu. Let's see what this looks like, because I'm going to make sure this page works, because I don't want you guys to go there.
It works.
It does work.
It's nice.
It is.
They did a great job. So yeah,
and of course, the first option that I see right now is the sleep gummies, which again, I'm a big fan of those suckers.
That's right.
So yeah, so cool. So the charlottesweb.com/Jiu-Jitsu, you can go there and save yourself 15%, and then epicrollbjj.com. Promo code Jiu-Jitsu, save 15% on the order. And again, if you want to check out our Patreon and get the exclusive content that we have there, as well as jump in on our bi-monthly Zoom meetings that I'm going to be doing, which is on Sunday mornings, you can go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast and join there as well. And that supports the podcast directly so that we can make the episodes for you and make them happen. And, looking eventually to bring out some guests and stuff like that, more in person. I want to do that more.
We're going to do it.
Yeah, more in person. So, and
we'll have the podcast room is currently under construction.
I can't wait till it's done.
I can't either. I really can't. That drywall is heavy.
Yeah. Eugene's like, see, I can't wait for it to be done because I'm excited. Eugene can't wait for it to be done because he's like, I'm tired of working on the damn thing.
No, I actually like working on it.
Yeah.
Doing something with your hands is kind of fun. It's really fun, actually.
I like doing stuff with my hands.
It's fun. It's good, like building something. Like,
yeah.
Funny, how, and some people might laugh at me, but I think drywall is really hard to work with. I mean, I always I had to cut like these little pieces of drywall just to fill in some gaps and stuff. And I was like, it takes forever, like to get it just right and get the drywall from not cracking and stuff. So anyway, people are like, you're terrible. That's okay. It'll be it'll be a great podcast room. And there's a whole thing, like I went down the rabbit hole and soundproofing the place and stuff. So it's been kind of fun learning stuff as always. So, that's the game plan.
That's right.
All right, guys. Thank you all for hanging out. Mr. Chewy.
Talk to you guys next time.